Today we will reflect on a problem some of us may face. What will happen when we call the police to do a wellness check on a neighbor who possibly is suffering from dementia? In my perspective, is that of a volunteer officer of an over 55 condominium association. And indeed, in my experience, determining whether a resident is simply being difficult or whether they are in the early stages of dementia can be difficult. And one warning sign of dementia is the elderly can no longer handle their financial affairs. If someone who's been paying their bills, including condominium maintenance fees, for decades is suddenly delinquent, could that be a warning sign for dementia? Another warning sign is puzzling and/or abusive behavior and/or sexually inappropriate behavior. Often the demented are combative through frustration, or literally because they lose the presence of mind to fix their meals when they should, or go to the doctor, or they may have urinary tract problems. Can we blame those suffering from dementia for their demented behavior, or those suffering from dementia responsible for their actions? And finally, what training do the police undergo to deal with citizens who have mental health issues, including dementia? Please, we welcome interesting questions in the comments. Let us learn and reflect together. And we will discuss the sources we used at the end of the video. Please feel free to follow along on the PowerPoint script we uploaded to SlideShare. Who should you call for wellness checks? We were reluctant at first to ask the police to perform these wellness checks. We wondered, do the police have the training necessary to take the place of social workers when performing these wellness checks? We live in Florida and the social welfare agencies just do not have the staff to perform these wellness checks. And other professionals are reluctant to do them for liability reasons, and because they're also busy. So we have no choice but to rely on the police to perform wellness checks. And unfortunately, the police may not want to share what they learned because of HIPAA or the health care privacy regulations. And the good news is that to be accredited, police departments need to provide a week of crisis intervention training, or CIT, on mental health issues to their police with continuing education. All but 4 rural Florida counties provide this training for their local police. Many of the mental health issues the police encounter overlap with drug abuse problems. The bad news is that this mental health training is geared towards the younger and middle-aged offenders. Police receive little training on dealing with the elderly who suffer from dementia. And so the first question is, how do you respond to dementia? And the picture reminds us that both Ronald Reagan and Sean Connery suffered from dementia in their waning years. How does dementia differ from other forms of mental illness? One difference is that no matter what you do, the elderly suffering from dementia will not substantially improve. They will only get worse. Of course, if you ensure that they have enough to eat and drink and have the necessary medical care, that will help. Sometimes I joke with the members of my community that if one of our elderly neighbors is ornery, that we should be patient with them, as they may be suffering from dementia and we don't know it. And this is literally true. While you can often sense if someone is autistic or has a drug problem or is schizophrenic, often you cannot tell if somebody is in the early stages of dementia. When you suspect that a neighbor could be suffering from dementia and needs help, who do you call? And this could be the elderly who have fallen behind in their bills or are behaving inappropriately. And most important, first call their family or loved ones. This is critical, especially if they're living alone. If the family are not involved in their life, then some homeless or alcoholic person could flatter them, move in, and take advantage of them. If they suspect intervention, they may drag the person suffering from dementia down to the courthouse and marry them. That would make them untouchable, so they can drain their assets at will. Often their family members are aware of their condition and are trying to take care of them. In that case, you could simply let them know what local resources are available, which would include the local Council of Aging, and in particular, the Alzheimer's Association, which has an excellent 24-hour hotline that you can call for free assistance and advice. We sometimes get pushback from people in our community when we suggest we need to keep in mind that our elderly who are behind in their bills or are behaving inappropriately might be suffering from dementia. And their objection, we are not an assisted living facility. And the problem with that objection is that the Almighty answered this question from Cain many millennia ago. Unfortunately, we are indeed our brother's keeper. Then there are some common sense responses to this concern. If someone is suddenly behind in their financial obligations, ask the police to perform a wellness check. If you inform them that foreclosure is a possibility, this will add urgency and may give them the leverage needed to entice the social welfare agencies to get involved in the case. If a resident is harassing the staff or other residents or acting inappropriately, including sexually inappropriate actions or remarks, ask the police to perform a wellness check. Emphasize you are as concerned with their welfare as you are about their behavior. Share with their family what is happening. Many condominium associations have emergency contact information in their files, which infers that this emergency contact information should be updated every decade or so to be useful. And inform your staff that if an elderly person is acting inappropriately, this could be due to early stage dementia. The association should not hesitate to ask the police to perform a wellness check. And these policies will also lessen staff turnover. Now, the Crisis Intervention Training Program was created in response to a tragedy that occurred in Memphis, Tennessee in 1987. The police responded to a call involving somebody threatening to commit suicide. When the police ordered him to drop the knife, he charged the officers with the knife, who then shot and killed him. In response to the community and media blowback, the Memphis Police Department consulted with the local chapter of the National Alliance on Mental Illness, or NAMI, and 2 local universities to develop the Memphis Police Crisis Intervention Team and Training Program, which has been adopted by police departments all over the country. In 2017, Steve Leifman, an associate administrative judge for the 11th Judicial Circuit in Miami-Dade County, was one of the authors of an article in the Atlantic magazine, How Mental Health Training for Police Can Save Lives and Taxpayer Dollars, with the subheading, but only if officials at all levels of government are willing to invest in it up front. Judge Leifman has lobbied for a police training program in Miami-Dade, which has been in place for several decades, with dramatic results. And we can't improve on his first few paragraphs. Every day seems to bring a new tragic story of a person with serious mental illness killed by police. In Seattle, a 30-year-old pregnant woman was shot in front of her children, and a 20-year-old man was killed before his high school graduation during what appeared to be his first psychotic episode, with a pen in his hand which police mistook for a knife. Sometimes the consequences are not death, but violent confrontations, arrests, and incarceration, occurring only because of miscommunication, missed signals, and misunderstandings. Most of these tragedies result from officers' lack of training on how to deal with people with serious mental illnesses. Standard police training is to issue commands, and when they're not followed, to push harder and more aggressively. And that may work in other circumstances, but they are exactly wrong for those with mental illnesses or development disorders. Another 2014 Atlantic article describes how the CIT program has been implemented in San Antonio. The article states that before this program, police responded to mental health emergencies the way they would to any other call. They used the tough guy command voice that they're taught to handle criminals. Police are notorious for the A personality type. They walk into a situation. They gain control of it. It's their call now. They're in charge, says one officer. But more often than not, the officers ended up taking people with serious mental health issues to jail. The other option was to take the person to a hospital emergency room. But in San Antonio, the police were waiting an average of 12 hours in the hospital until the person could be triaged. And that made jail seem more appealing. Judge Leifman noted, since 2010, there were fewer than 200 deaths from mental health-related calls to police. Fatal shootings by police were down nearly 90% in Dade County. What changed? A key component was the CIT training of over 5,400 police officers in Miami-Dade, representing all 36 police departments, using a 40-hour program crafted initially in Memphis, Tennessee in the late 80s. To be sure, it was not easy. First, many police officers believe that they know what they're doing and don't think they need additional training. Second, it was a battle to convince police chiefs to take their cops off the beat for a week to take the course. Many police departments were not eager to adopt the CIT program, and Congress was not willing to push for its expansion nationwide. Judge Leifman continues, finding treatment for people to live with these illnesses, including medical care and often a place to live, usually requires Medicaid. In Miami-Dade, the program has done so well that both the county and the conservative Florida legislature have appropriated funds to build a new comprehensive treatment facility for the most acutely ill, who regularly recycle through both the criminal justice and mental health systems. Most states and counties have failed to invest in expanding the number of beds available to residents overall, much less invest in quality treatment facilities. In a follow-up article in 2022, Judge Leifman notes, as a result, the makeup of our prison population tells its own tale. More than 70% of people in American jails and prisons have at least one diagnosed mental illness or substance use disorder, or both. Up to a third of those incarcerated have serious mental illnesses, a much higher rate than is found at large. On any given day, approximately 380,000 people with mental illnesses are in jail or prison across the United States, and another 574,000 are under some form of correctional supervision. And Miami-Dade has a documentary film on mental illness, and some of the things I learned from that documentary was that in addition to implementing the crisis intervention training program for its police officers, Miami-Dade has also instituted a mental health court system. In this film, they follow several cases as they progress through the system over a few years. Not all cases are successful, and they include one backsliding case where the defendant eventually graduated from the system. These cases also involve drug and alcoholic addictions and community counselors, and help the participants get on their feet and earn a living rather than be sentenced to jail terms. The participants need to be accepted by the judges to participate in the jail diversion program, with supervised court-ordered counseling. At first, only misdemeanor offenders were accepted into the program, but as the county gained experience, now second and third degree felony offenders can be accepted. Some of the statistics mentioned in the film are: people with mental illness are 19 times more likely to find a bed in jail than in a state civil hospital. The cost of incarcerating someone with mental illness is $31,000 a year, but the cost to enroll someone in community mental health services is only $10,000 per year. If trends continue, Florida will need to build 10 prisons in 10 years, costing over $2 billion. Since the jail diversion project began, the number of arrests in Miami-Dade has fallen from 118,000 to 56,000 per year, saving the county $12 million. Recidivism for felony and misdemeanor clients who complete the program has dropped from 80% to less than 25%. And police shootings went down from 2 a month to 16 over several years, a dramatic decline. Another article in Atlantic Magazine discusses the history of deinstitutionalization of the mentally ill. It mentions the crisis intervention program, which in 2021 was implemented in over 2,500 police departments across the country. Now, the article is skeptical how effective a few hours of training is in countering police attitudes. Although I can attest that in my community, most policemen are very aware of the challenges posed by the mentally ill. We do wish to include some quotes from this Atlantic article. In many prisons and jails, the urgent question is not how to reduce this surging population, but how to build larger and better psychiatric units and treatment facilities inside the walls of the prisons. Rikers Island, for example, now has specialized therapeutic units for people who might need hospitalization or who have just returned from a psychiatric hospital. And it's easy to think that if people with mental illness could be housed and treated in asylums or similar institutions, they wouldn't be policed or incarcerated at such high rates. But it's important to remember that those hospitals had deteriorated to conditions shockingly similar to today's worst prisons and jails, and they're talking about the mental institutions back in the 60s. Instead, we need to face head-on the enormous problems of mass incarceration and a system of mental health care that effectively does not exist. No nostalgic looking back will change that. And we definitely agree. The recent New York City elections prove that even in a liberal district, campaigning on the idea of transferring money from the police budgets to the mental health budgets is political suicide. Perhaps police departments should pin badges on dedicated mental health workers instead. And in closing, what's the odds of developing dementia? Over 65, 1 in 14 have dementia. Over 80, 1 in 6. Which brings us around to our original concern. These crisis intervention programs often do not include training on how police can spot and handle those citizens who are suffering from early and late stages of dementia. And then we feel compassion for our police officers. How can they tell whether someone is just ornery or whether they are in the early stages of dementia? Now we'll discuss the sources we used for this video. Our primary sources are past articles from the Atlantic Magazine, and we explored many of these same issues in our video. And that was how I halted a foreclosure on a destitute owner with advanced dementia. And this video strives to be educational on the challenges we face when encountering Alzheimer's and how this issue makes many people uncomfortable. And there's an excellent case study by Kim Campbell, widow of Glenn Campbell, and how his personality changed from before he contracted Alzheimer's to his early, middle, and late stages of this condition. In both of these videos, we also included much helpful information from the Alzheimer's Association website on the symptoms and stages of Alzheimer's. They have an excellent network of support groups, plus they offer an excellent 24-hour hotline free of charge for for caretakers and others wanting information on dementia. And for clarification, about 70% of dementia patients suffer from Alzheimer's, and there are other types of dementia. In the near future, we will be releasing a review of a book released in 2023, Travelers to Unimaginable Lands, Story of Dementia, the Caretaker, and the Human Brain. And we will also briefly discuss the latter life of Rita Hayworth and Tony Bennett, both of whom developed Alzheimer's. And the thumbnail photo was by Walt Stoneburner on Flickr. The YouTube description includes a link to our PowerPoint script that we uploaded to SlideShare and also our blog. Please support this channel by sharing this video with your friends and by clicking on the like and subscribe buttons and by clicking on the Amazon links to purchase any of the books we discussed, which will earn us a very small affiliate commission. And please consider becoming a patron of our channel. Plus, we will host special discussion groups for our patrons. Plus, you can click on the Meetup or small M icon to participate in our online discussions, where we practice our future YouTube scripts. And please click on the links for other videos that will broaden your knowledge and improve your soul.